Before we begin working on our fingernail shape, listen up. Place your right hand flat on your right leg or on a desk or table. Whenever I say left side of the fingernail, I'm talking about the left side of the nail as you're looking down on it right now. This is the left side of your fingernail. That is also what I call the playing side of the nail. Most guitarists place this left side of the nail on the string first and play. Like that, left side, the playing side. Not straight on like this and playing straight across. That produces a bright sound. But on the left side only. The left side is the playing side. In discussing fingernail shape, once again, I'm going to give you many things to try, but it's up to you to experiment and then keep track of and evaluate your results. You'll have to find out what best suits your fingers and your playing style. Again, experiment, decide what works best for you. Begin the rough shaping process with a nail file. Most people agree that an industrial diamond chip file works best for this. Revlon makes a great one that's available at most drugstores. It costs just a few dollars. The Diamond Deb is another one. They shape the nail without weakening the edge. Or, if you like the multi-surface files like these, which I'll talk about in detail a bit later, use the roughest or the second roughest section. Don't use an all-metal file, which is a crosshatch scored blade, and don't use emery boards like this. Both are rough and tear up the nail edge, making final sanding and polishing more difficult. And never use nail clippers. As Charles Duncan, author of the great book, The Art of Classical Guitar Playing, writes, it's an appallingly crude approach to a delicate task. Tell us how you really feel, Charles. The Revlon and most other diamond files have a shaping side that is pretty rough and a finishing side that is smoother. Unless your nails are really tough and thick, most people should use the finishing side of the file. Using a nail file to shape the nails is only done maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. It depends on how fast your nails grow. I know the nail shape I want, so I just file freestyle. I'm sure I'll hear from some snarky viewers that this is an appallingly crude approach. But it works for me. Just so you know, for some of the sequences in this video, I'm using a fake guitar nail, a Rico guitar nail, so that when I'm filing on these, I'm not ruining my real nails. So the Rico nail looks like that. And I've got a whole tech tip on my website on using these. If you ever break a nail, these are the ideal solution. Or if you have really bad nails, you can use these all the time. They're very easy to put on, very easy to take off. They work great. They sound wonderful as well. So check that out. But anyway, if you look at my nail and a nail looks odd, it may be the Rico nail that you're seeing in the video clips. If you're new to this, sit with your elbows on your knees or on a desk or table. This will help stabilize your arms and hands so you can have good control over what you're doing. Hold the file in the left hand and place the fingernail against the file at about a 45-degree angle like that. Not straight on like that, 90 degrees, but 45-degree angle, and you'll file like that. If your nails have a regular curvature or arch with the high point in the center, file the nail with the fingertip in a perpendicular plane to the file. Gosh, I feel like I'm back in old lady Edelbrock's geometry class. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, it means like this, perpendicular to the nail, not like this and not like that, but perpendicular like that. And notice I'm holding the file at a 45-degree angle underneath. In other words, I'm not straight onto the nail like that, but angled like this and perpendicular, just like that. Make short movements in both directions. Don't whisk or hack at it like that. And you can either move the file like I'm doing here, or you can keep the file steady and move the hand like that. Either way is fine, although I'm certain the snarky members of both schools will predict dire consequences and doom to those who do it differently from them. File until most of the nail ends up in a straight line on the file. So the file is just flat on there, fits flat on the whole surface of the nail. This will create two corners on the nail, here and over here. With just a few strokes of the file, you're going to blunt those corners. You're going to round them a little bit. Left side of the nail, right side of the nail. Until you have a nice round shape. With just a little more filing on those corners, you end up with a nicely curved nail following the contour of the fingertip. If your natural nail curvature is irregular, with the high point of the arch off to the left, or the high point of the arch off to the right, if you have some kind of hook in the nail, or if your nail is pretty flat with very little arch, the perpendicular filing may not work. You may need to use a ramp shape instead. Most of these problems can be minimized by ramping the nail from low on the left side, the playing side, to higher on the right side. To do this, place the fingernail on the file at an angle like this, not perpendicular like we did a while ago, but angled like this. And you're going to start filing. Now, how much of an angle do you use here? Well, you're going to have to experiment with that. Probably very little of a ramp. It's not going to take a huge ramp. Usually a huge ramp is going to cause bad tone quality. And it's going to feel very odd as well. So a slight angle to produce a slight ramp. After you've filed it down for a while, it's going to look like that. It's going to have that ramp like that. It's going to be fairly flat like that. And then what you're going to do is round those two corners. After you've rounded those corners, you're going to end up with a shape something like that. Again, this is the ramp shape. It's shorter on the left side, the playing side of the nail, and longer on the right side, the release point. Others may find that a ramp going the opposite direction works better. In other words, longer on the left side, the playing side, and shorter on the right side. This shape is also usually better for those few unconventional guitarists who play on the right sides of their fingernails all the time. To shape the nail into that kind of ramp, what we're going to do, again, not perpendicular like this, but turned like this. Again, our 45-degree angle from underneath, but turned this direction, not perpendicular. Our other ramp, we did this. This new ramp, we turn this way and begin filing. And again, how much of a ramp? You'll have to experiment. After filing, we've got this straight line, this ramp here. And again, it's longer on the left side, shorter on the right side. And we have 2 points that we'll need to file off that will round those 2 points. So after rounding those points, we now have our ramp, which is higher on the left side, the playing side, and lower on the right side. Here are some rules about shaping your nails. Number 1, file the nails in a rounded shape that follows the contour of the fingertip. Rule number 2, never file the nails following the contour of the fingertip. Filing the nails in a rounded shape that follows the contour of the fingertip has been a guiding rule for a long time. This is the shape Segovia used. But some maintain that with this shape, the string releases from the nail too early. They recommend a ramped shape instead to ensure the string releases right of center. My take is that the release point should be right of center, but what determines that release point is not so much the shape of the nail, but the angle of the hand and whether one plays straight across the strings or slices the strings. Rule number 3, file the nails a little shorter on the left side so there is a slight ramp up to the right side. Rule number 4, don't do rule number 3. There's too much resistance. Or do the opposite, longer on the left and ramp it down to the right side. The ramp shape does work for many people. It's also effective in remedying problems with being born with nails that are naturally badly shaped. Things like nails that hook down in the center, hook upward, are excessively arched, or very flat. Rule number 5. If your nail shape, looking straight on to the edge of the nail, is highly arched, use a more rounded contour. Rule number 6, if your nail shape, again looking straight on to the edge of the nail, is highly arched, use a flatter contour. Rule number 7, if a nail has a flat shape, file it fairly flat. Rule number 8, if a nail has a flat shape, file it with a more rounded contour. Rule number 9, round all corners of the fingernail. Rule number 10, you guessed it, leave the corners squared off. Don't round them. Now, on the corner thing, corners can definitely catch for some people, especially if they're on the left side of the nail. They can be the cause of terrible tone quality if they're on the right side. However, some players' sound benefits by having a small corner on the left side. Now, all these contradictory rules, it's easy enough to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You try both and see what works. Simple as that. Finally, the last rule is one that, believe it or not, everyone seems to agree on. Rule number 11, never file a nail into a pointed shape. This invariably results in a thin tone. This is no joke. These rules come from various books and articles by very savvy guitarists. As you can see, every rule is contradicted by another rule, except for number 11 about never filing a nail into a point. And it isn't that any particular rule is dead wrong. You should try all these possibilities. But it comes back to what I can't say enough. What works for one person will not necessarily work for you. I'm going to give you many things to try, but it's up to you to experiment and then keep track of and evaluate your results. You'll have to find out what best suits your fingers and your playing style. Experiment. Decide what works best for you.